Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Growth Marketing Webinar Series brought to you by Business to Community and our partner, Budgets.ai. I'm Vasil, founder at the Growth Marketing Conference, Silicon Valley's largest growth marketing event. Our vision is to become the most valuable event and community for modern marketers. And I'm very excited to be your moderator today for today's webinar, how artificial intelligence can find new opportunities and shorten your sales cycles. Today we will learn how to identify the top companies in your ABM target list, estimated budgets at your target accounts, the best time to engage them, and best executives to engage. A few housekeeping reminders before we get started. This presentation will be recorded, and we will send the recording to you within 48 hours, so you can share it with your coworkers. If you would like to tweet some key takeaways from today's webinar, you can use hashtag #GrowthMarketingConf. And I'm super excited to introduce our partner and one of the presenters for today's webinar, Anand Karasi, who is the founder of Budgets.ai. Anand is MIT-trained data scientist and a former account executive at Salesforce, HP, and Actuate. And he's the founder of Budgets.ai. Anand, please take it away.
Thank you, Vasil. Hi, everyone. Well, welcome to the webinar today. This is Anand Karasi, founder of Budgets.ai, and I'm joined today by Mani Iyer, CEO of Quanzu. So the key takeaways from today's webinar, you will get to learn about account budget intelligence. How is account budget intelligence, also known as ABI? How is it different from today's intent data? You'll get to learn how ABI is helping sales to engage the right accounts and the right executives, and it's helping marketing to build more pipeline. And we'll see some examples of ABI and ABM together in action. A little bit about myself and Budgets.ai. I have a mixed background of being a career sales guy at Salesforce and Autonomy HP. And I'm also an AI engineer by training with over a decade in product development. Budgets.ai is a self-service SaaS application that's currently available, and it provides budgets information across hundreds of thousands of companies on 20 different topics today. The topics include cloud budgets, security, ITSM, BI, and many more. We are very fortunate to have Mani Iyer join us on this webinar to help us understand more on how to use ABI. Mani, could you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Anand. Really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this webinar. I think it's a very interesting topic. In terms of myself and my background, I run a company called Quanzu, and we specialize in what we call adaptive account-based marketing solutions, adaptive ABM. So as you can see, prior to Quanzu, I've had, I've done the Silicon Valley thing of, built a company over several years, and it was acquired by Oracle, now part of PeopleSoft. I guess PeopleSoft part of Oracle. Been at some large tech companies. Quanzu, we are really focused on helping mid to large B2B companies, with their account-based marketing, account-based advertising, demand generation, helping drive more pipeline. You're seeing a sampling of some of our customers there, HCL, HPE, as you can see. Certainly some larger organizations, but also some high-growth companies, high-growth startups, late-stage companies such as Contrast Security. Anna?
Great. Thank you, Mani.
Yeah.
All right. Let's kick off the rest of the webinar with the agenda. So we'll start with understanding the state of ABM and the intent data today. Mani will give us an overview of that, and then we'll get to spend the rest of the time on account budget intelligence, how AI is being used to identify budgets within prospects. And then Mani will, again, help us understand how to use ABI in ABM initiatives, and then we'll look at the future of ABI and where it's headed. Okay. Mani, why don't you give us, you're an expert in ABM, tell us what's happening in this world today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Anand. So here's kind of how we see B2B marketing and sales, evolving lately. If you look at what has happened over the last 3 or 4 years, right? I mean, the classic traditional demand generation has really been what I would call lead-based. It's around, getting people to fill out a form on a website, a page, and essentially, track a bunch of leads that go through the pipeline, through the process, and then salespeople would operate and work on leads. Mm-hmm. Now, what changed, if you will, in the last 3 years or so, is I would say marketing had to learn to operate more like sales. Right? Sales has always been focused on accounts, going after buying groups, buying teams within an organization, and especially true, as you can see, we've segmented out here for our listeners a little bit that ABM, from what we've seen, works best for mid to large enterprise targets, meaning you're a B2B company trying to sell into a B2B larger organization. And it also works well when you're going after an annual contract value or ACV, 20,000 and up, because that's when it's more of a complex sale, and you have 3 or more buyers. So as the cost and complexity of the solution grows, and then if you look at it from a go-to-market standpoint for these companies who want to use ABM, who want to apply ABM, on the other dimension, you've got market segments. So you can certainly look at it for net new, which is trying to land into new accounts. Right. And then there's also, you have an existing customer base, you want to upsell and cross-sell into the customer base, want to make new people in those organizations, new buying centers, buying groups, buying teams aware of your solution offerings, and then ABM works really well for that too. And so on the right, as you can see, we've talked about new geo, new industry, new account segment. Those could be some drivers for you to apply ABM tactics. The other could be new buying groups in an existing account. So those are all ways where, the key point I would say for marketing is to think beyond individual buyers, but to think of a buying group or a buying team, right? And then from a sales cycle point of view, as you can see, ABM, the other cool thing here is it comes into play in all of these different ways. I mean, one is increase awareness about the solution within the organization. Second is you may be touching just 1 out of these 7 or 8 people you need to touch, and to get them to engage and influence on your solution, you want to expand your buying group, right? And then the reinforcing is really, okay, you want to reinforce the value of your offering to your existing customers or to other buying groups, buying teams, buying centers within that group. Anand.
Right. So how exactly are they able to accomplish today?
Yeah, so I would say, ABM has become a little bit of a catch-all. You have people call it ABM where they are in the business of data for supporting ABM marketing initiatives. Right. Or they may be just have specific program offerings around ABM. Could be content syndication leads that you're doing with an account-based model, account-based perspective, all the way to email marketing. Again, traditional marketing emails are now being more ABMized, if you will, right? You're targeting specific accounts and buyers and buyer personas. But then, certainly an area where we focus and specialize at Quant is what we call ABM advertising, ABM retargeting, which is all of the, quote, paid media initiatives, paid media budgets, right, where people are traditionally be doing it using, traditional Google AdWords or Google what have you, right? And of course, LinkedIn is another channel where you have LinkedIn as a way to do ABM or account-based reach into those accounts through advertising. We specialize at Quant in what we call programmatic ABM advertising, which is the ability for customers to define a set of accounts, define some buyer personas, buying groups, and then to be able to target those specific buyers at those companies with display advertising all across the web globally. That certainly is something we do. And then that's where, it's a piece of ABM. I don't want to say it's, ABM is big, it's wide, it's vast. Pretty much for what we're seeing is, think of it as a lot of the marketing technology, sales technology is all coming together and aligning for B2B use cases all around this ABM approach, if you will.
What is the new developments here? There is this thing called intent data that has come up. So how is that impacting ABM, and how good is that?
Yeah, no, hey, that's a great question. I know that there's a lot of, people, a lot of companies that are positioning in the market around intent. And it's confusing. I think customers are really confused. Well, what is intent? What is it telling me? And so here's how we see it. When you look at any B2B marketing and sales organization, obviously they have a certain amount of time, resources, budget, so they want to focus their attention, really, really target the exact right companies, right buyers who are, quote, in market, right, in a buying cycle at the moment. And so that's where, the whole idea of intent data providers has come into the market within the B2B market, right, the marketing space. And so you've got these folks, traditionally the easy segmentation is around, hey, how big is a company? What's their revenue? What's their industry? What's their size? That's firmographic specs, right? Mm-hmm. And then the second dimension is you have another set of data companies that can help with understanding installed technologies. What solutions are they using? What products are they using? What the intent guys are doing, certainly the current set of intent companies, intent players, is what I call in-market intent based on content consumption on third-party websites, right? So right. They track people, all B2B buyers, all across the web. As they go around the web, they are essentially tracking what content are they consuming, what companies are they from, what is their buyer personas, and then they're organizing, categorizing that data and offering it to B2B companies to now use in their outreach efforts to maybe prioritize those accounts to go after first. And that's what certainly the current set of intent companies do. And obviously, I'm sure we'll be talking a lot more about why we are excited about what you guys are doing at Budgets.ai, which is, I think, Budgets.ai with ABI is adding another flavor, another version, a completely different approach, to traditional classic intent. You probably should talk about, what is it you guys do over there in the visual. Right. That is different from the content consumption intent providers.
Yeah, we came at it from a sales point of view, right? Given my background in sales and my teams, we've been looking at budgets from a purely sales point of view so far, and we got excited when we could find an opportunity to apply it in marketing.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one area where we are seeing that budgetary intelligence that is generated by AI could be combined with the advertising work, the ABM advertising work that you guys have been doing.
Right.
And then look for making an impact there, filling the gaps that the current intent providers have.
Right. So I think if you go back to the previous slide, I think I'll tell you, at least from our perspective, right, the essence of what we picked up on what you all are doing that's interesting is all the traditional intent providers are waiting on somebody to click on a piece of content, and they're waiting for that signal to pick up and say, hey, these people are probably in market.
Right.
But what I find intriguing, interesting about your approach is you are looking at self-declared information out on the public web.
That's
by B2B companies on what are their initiatives, what are their projects, what is going on in those organizations around specific solution areas, product initiatives, project initiatives. And from what I understood is also the idea of self-declared information by individual B2B professionals.
That's right.
About what are they working on, what are the areas that they're working on. And so I think I'm really curious to learn more about, how do you put all that together and make it actionable, and I think that's what would be interesting, I think, for our listeners.
Yeah, wonderful. So let me give a little bit more details on this new kind of intelligence, or the different flavor here, account budget intelligence. And before I get into the details, let me walk you through the purchase journey of a B2B buyer, right? And we'll look at when budgets are getting spent by them, how they're consuming information to make decisions that impact these budgetary decisions. And so let's start with, it all starts with the awareness that is generated, that is created by the vendors, right? So vendors and their marketing initiatives with content, with events, with demos, with meetings, create the awareness. And at some point, the buyer gets interested, intrigued, and they start consuming the content. And after some time, they would decide an evaluation. They will select a smaller group of vendors for an evaluation, and that's when you start seeing them spending money. Those are usually the pilot eval budgets, smaller size budgets. And usually one vendor and maybe a few solution implementation partners would get selected, a decision is made, and a bigger chunk of money is spent or budget is spent for the implementation. Following the implementation, the budgets again become smaller. Usually they are meant for renewals, upgrades, and so until a next major replacement or refresh, usually the budgets are smaller. So this is a typical life cycle or the purchase journey of a buyer, and how you can see the budgets on the top right. You can see a typical pattern. Where ABI gets involved is predicting companies and how they are allocating these budgets throughout these different phases: pilot, renewals, and then the historical budgets, and also forecasting when they would start a pilot. So right now, we at Budgets.ai are looking at 5.5 million companies worldwide and forecasting budgets across various topics. So budgets for cloud technologies, budgets for IT service management, business intelligence, and topics that are being requested by our customers. So we track those budgets across these companies. And it's different than the intent signals. Intent signals are explicit, and they can only be generated when somebody clicks on an item that is being tracked at a certain website. And so the intent signal does not capture every company, and it captures very few people, and we do not know exactly which phase they are. Are they planning on an evaluation or not? Whereas the ABI data is a lot more exhaustive. It looks at every company out there and looks at predicting the budgetary spend.
Yeah. So Anand, let me, if we can take just another 30 seconds on this slide, right? So I think, yeah, to your point, when I look at it as a marketer, what I find interesting is intent, the current breed of intent, content consumption intent providers, they certainly give us some set of interesting signals. I call it third-party signals on third-party websites. And to your point, I think it gives us a signal that, hey, there is potential in-market intent right now for a particular solution. So that's great. Where I think you all are adding another layer of value is helping in the selection process of specific target accounts in each of these phases. So it can be right at the top of the funnel in the awareness phase.
Yes.
Again, I think Budgets.ai data can really help in narrowing down or filtering down the set of accounts you should even go after from an awareness point of view, because, hey, let's make sure they have the budget for your solution first.
Right.
So I certainly found that interesting, because you're going beyond traditional firmographics and technographics. And I'm sure the other thing is we can apply this data all across the funnel, and we'll talk about that, which is how we can arm salespeople with that information too.
Yeah, that's correct. So let's get into more details, right? How is this account budget intelligence generated? How good is it? What can it provide, right? Mm-hmm. So to do that, let me give you some background, and then we'll look at very specific examples, right? The way the budgetary intelligence is generated is by converting information into dollar numbers. In the last 20 years, since Google and SEO, businesses have been publishing more information about themselves, and their employees have been publishing a lot more information about themselves on social media and other places than ever before. So there is a wealth of information about businesses and their employees out on the web and in social media. And that information is crawled. These are all publicly available data, mm-hmm. self-declared by the company and by the employees. And that information is cataloged by Budgets.ai, and we apply an algorithm called the budget ranking algorithm to convert this information into budgetary figures. right? And the budget ranking algorithm, it works very similar to Google's page ranking algorithm. Google's page ranking algorithm takes a web page and puts a score of 0 to 10 on every web page that it crawls. We crawl web pages and social media, but aggregate them as companies and then put a score, which is like a dollar figure on that gathered information. For example, we can look at the historic spend or budgets for ABM budget. So this is at New Relic. So New Relic has ABM initiatives going on. And in 2019, Budgets.ai has computed that New Relic probably spent about $3 million in the year 2019. And that spend was about 150% more than the previous year. The budget was spent across Engagio, Marketo, and Lean Data. Those are the three companies that have been identified. And Marketo has had a pretty good growth of about 500% spend. And most of the money or the budget was spent in San Francisco and Portland, with Portland growing at about 700% in the last year. And the teams that have been involved in ABM are the marketing team, communications team, sales team, each sales team, operations, and field operations. So, and then in terms of why or what kind of initiatives were involved in this program, we can see that list creation, advertising, account intelligence, account qualification, these are the different areas where the budget has been allocated, with advertising getting about a significant increase in advertising activity at New Relic.
Interesting.
So this is an example of historical budgetary activity that has been computed by Budgets.ai.
And Anand, I'm sure somebody taking a look at this, the first question is, are there things you all are doing around validating, right, the accuracy or how good this data it really is that you're generating here around budgets?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me give you another example, and I'll show you how we are also validating validating this data. Right. Here is another example of pilots or evaluation budgets. Right. So these are on the same topic, account ABM budgets across companies in the U.S. And in this example here, you can see that Benefit Focus, a company out of Charleston, South Carolina, has started an ABM project in September, and the marketing team was involved with that. And we think it's about $300,000 is the pilot budget for ABM at Benefit Focus. We reached out to the executives of Benefit Focus, and James Stanton, who is the head of marketing at Benefit Focus, we've sent this information that you just saw, and he confirmed that this is correct. So we constantly validate our projections by sharing it with executives and asking for feedback. So that's one of the ways where we are validating if the budgetary numbers that we're generating are accurate, or how off they are from the actual numbers, and calibrating accordingly. So the calibration is continuously an ongoing process, and just with any AI systems, it gets better over time.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we're going to get to this, which is we are doing some interesting things with your data for specific clients of ours, right? And we can talk about how we are starting to leverage this information, leverage this data to arm salespeople. So we'll get to that soon. Right.
So one of the interesting ways is, as soon as there is activity picked up from your ABM initiatives, the salespeople can look into the historical spends, the competitors in the space, in that account, and get prepared. And we'll get into more details on that later.
Absolutely.
Another interesting area of ABI is forecasting. trying to find out which companies are going to start an evaluation in the coming 6 to 12 months. Right? Now, having had predicted the spend in the previous, in the past and validated with executives, we have used that as training data. That's a lot of training data that we have, which has not been used. In this case here, as an example, forecasting upcoming ABM initiatives. Right. Now, here, the status quo today is salespeople, the more experienced salespeople, when they go walk into an account, based on their experience, they can tell or forecast how good the chances are of getting a pilot or evaluation going. And they lean on years and decades of experience to do that. Right. Most of the seasoned salespeople in ABM, they would say, like, yes, if the company has been spending money on sales force automation, on marketing automation, they're very advanced. So ABM is an advanced technique. There's a high chance that they would do an evaluation. That is, what's called tribal knowledge in the sales people, in the sales teams. What we have also uncovered from our training models is that there is a strong correlation between companies that invest in SaaS technologies and cloud computing. Those companies are also ahead and early adopters of ABM technologies. And there are many more underlying budgets, unrelated to ABM, that actually are leading indicators of companies that would actually be investing in ABM.
Yeah, that's something we've always wondered, right? I mean, many of us do, which is there a higher propensity for a salesperson to be able to, get their particular product or solution sold into a particular company, right, based on prior technologies purchased by that company? So it sounds like that's certainly one of the many things you are looking at, right, with the way you're doing ABI forecasting.
Yes, and we are able to do that because we are looking and tracking budgets across various topics, right, that may be totally unrelated to marketing, but there is a correlation and the relationships that we are able to uncover. Right? And here's an example where we found about 130 companies in high tech and financial services that we are anticipating will start an ABM initiative anytime in the next 6 months. And there's a precision in the ABM in our calculations. We think there's a 75% chance of doing that.
Right, and I just want to clarify, when you say topic, I mean, I know the intent folks also, the content consumption intent people, they call it intent topics. We've had some providers there, they call it surge topics. But the basic idea here is it's a product or solution category, in a sense, at least the way the analysts talk about it. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put that. In fact, we use an analyst report to define our categories. So I think it's a fairly good way to put it.
Great.
Right. Now, so you have seen a few examples of lists of companies, teams, locations where budgets have been spent or where they're going to get spent. We also have renewals, upcoming renewal information. So these all form segmented account lists based upon the maturity of these companies. They would fall into one or two of these lists, and then this list is provided to render like an ABM platform like Quanzu. And Mani, why don't you explain how you would consume a set of account segmented lists like this and then drive the marketing initiatives in the pipeline generation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, we should probably talk about, one of the customers that we are working on together. So this customer is a high-growth B2B SaaS company. So they have a very clearly defined category where they're playing in the market. So what we did working with Anand and the budgets team is essentially come up with a very highly targeted ranked list of accounts with the ranking of individual accounts in that category. And then we've been working with the customer to kind of put together what I would call a triangulation between the Budgets AI recommended list of accounts, and then they are also using a couple of the more traditional intent data providers, data vendors. And so they've used actually multiple factors to kind of put together a consolidated list of target accounts. So they have a larger universe of accounts, like 2,200, 2,500 or so accounts. Those accounts are the ones they consider their ideal account profile that they're going to be tracking and monitoring across their website. And in fact, they are doing that to see what's the engagement they're seeing, who's coming in, what level of engagement, that those signals are being fed over to their sales team. Now, the other thing we've done is we have used the Budgets AI data to further inform the accounts, a smaller set of accounts. This is roughly, I would say about 500-600 accounts or so. And those accounts out of the larger list are the ones to which we are serving highly targeted advertising, right? So now the next step in that process for us is, now that you're using Budgets AI data to inform the account selection, is making sure, obviously, personalize the ad experience, personalize the content offers or to all these different accounts on their web properties website, which is another way to drive deeper engagement. But more important, once the first-party engagement data, meaning who clicked on the ad, which account, they came to the website, did they consume content, what did they do, all those first-party actions are being fed in over to the sales team and their SDRs and BDRs. The next step on, and as you and I both know, that's interesting for the salesperson is, okay, what can Budgets AI tell me about this account before I pick up the phone and call or before I try to send them an email? Is there any which way I can be more deeply informed? Do they have a budget? What kind of historical budgets have they had? Is it part of the Budgets AI forecast? Is this something that I should focus on first? Because all the first-party signals may give them 50 accounts to work on for the week, but they have to pick and choose, right, obviously. Where should they focus their time, their energy? So that's certainly how we've been working with a mutual customer to kind of refine their process, start incorporating Budgets AI, not just for account selection, but downstream for how they're informing sales to kind of drive more first appointments, first meetings, more opportunity creation, and building a bigger pipeline.
Great. Thank you, Mike. So in addition to providing the ABI data to an ABM platform like Quanzu and then driving the marketing pipeline, we're also exploring ways to provide that through the Salesforce UI, right? And you are looking into working on some of that in that direction as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We do have a Salesforce UI offering and that captures a bunch of first-party signals today. Who's clicking on ads, who's visiting the site, who are the anonymous buyers from the target company or account that are engaging. Quote, what are the relevant contacts at that company that sales should be going after based on some of the persona detail that we get to see in terms of who's engaging from that account, even if they have not filled out a form, even if they're not given up their email address. So that we're trying to arm sales with all kinds of interesting insights and data at a deep level. And you're absolutely correct. That's where our sales UI, Salesforce UI is the one that we're looking to enhance even more with some of the budgets data.
So we have had a good amount of success with ABI, and I would like to give some more background, the historical context, and where it is headed next. It started in around 2014, where some of the early deployments of the ABI technologies resulted in one rep closing at 400% of his quota in one of the companies I worked before, and being the top mid-market rep in that company. And in 2018, it helped in predicting and closing a $500 million transaction for a Bay Area tech giant. And then last year, Budgets.ai tracked about $220 billion of budgets across 20 different topics. And looking forward, we are looking to get to start tracking about $1 trillion in budgets worldwide, and continue to improve the accuracy and also the depth of intelligence we can get around these budgets. So that's where we are headed with this technology. Anything else you want to add, Mani?
No, I think we probably should put up the contact information, open it up for Q&A. But before we do that, and I'm sure Vasil will have questions from the audience. I have one question for us, Anand, that we probably should address, which is beyond those 20 categories and topics. I'm sure folks listening might be wondering, hey, my company operates in a different area. It's a whole new solution category. Can you guys support our solution category? What is it going to take for you to operationalize support for a new solution category?
Yeah. Thanks, Mani. That's a good question. And yes, Budgets is capable of operationalizing a new category. If the category has been in existence for some time, say maybe a year or two, and the analysts have done a good job of covering that, it's very easy. We are within 24 hours of generating a category, a topic for something that is well defined. If it is an emerging topic, it's still being developed, and this is a startup that is creating a brand new category by themselves. Then it involves a little bit more time and maybe a couple of weeks to get that category in place.
Got it. And I'm sure there is some investment involved. Is that fair to say in terms of supporting a new category? So you will need to.
No, we are adding new categories as we go. So all the categories or the topics we have been requested by our customers, and we anticipate that before the end of this year, we'll have 100 of these topics in place.
Oh, wow.
And so we are continuously adding topics on a weekly basis and prioritizing them based upon our customer prospect requests.
And on any one particular category, from what I understand, you end up basically looking through all the entire account database that you have to see, have you seen signals on any of those accounts? And then you start ranking and scoring them. So, and then, from what I understand, you certainly will have tens of thousands of accounts that are ranked at the end of the process. Is that right?
That is correct. So the heavy lifting has already been done, and it's going on continuously, which is collecting the raw information about companies, 5.5 million companies across the world on a daily basis.
Right.
So that's an ongoing crawling process that's happening. And several years of such information is already collected. So when we define a new category, we are pretty much searching through that, the large volumes of data, and then the AI engines kick in and start calibrating. Obviously, on the first pass, the first day, we have a pretty good first guess at the budgets, but over time, it improves. For example, one of the early topics that we provided was cloud budgets, cloud technology. Who is spending money on AWS and Microsoft and Google Cloud and other players in the space? It's now 2 years old, and that's one of the most accurate topics we have today. It's close to $100 billion being spent in that space, and we are tracking that. But the other topics are relatively new, and it takes anywhere between a month to 6 months for it to get very accurate. But even the first round is pretty good.
Got it. Yeah, I think with that, let's turn it over to Vasil for any questions from the audience.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Mani and Anand. Thanks for joining us today and sharing all this invaluable information. And we have a few questions. Also, for those of you who are here joining us live, go ahead and submit your questions via chat. We might have time for a few more. For those of you who are watching this recording on demand, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Budgets.ai and Kwanzu, to Mani and Anand via email, and visit their websites as well. So first question I would address to you, Mani, first. How do you see the current state of account-based marketing, and what is your outlook of future for the account-based marketing and the industry overall?
Yeah, absolutely. So, look, I think now just broadening it out a little bit, you have your what I call these, cloud vendors, right? The marketing and sales tech providers who are the bigger players, if you will, right? The Oracles and the Adobes and Salesforces and Microsofts and so on, right? They are going to continue to do more for B2B and try to offer a complete solution set. That's going to be one set of players. We certainly in the ABM I call them pure play ABM. You've got folks like Demandbase. There's us. There's some other providers, and there we see companies that specialize in ABM, and then they're trying to obviously. It's segmenting into two parts. One is you have some of them trying to position themselves as what I call all-in-one ABM vendors, where they're trying to build all the technology in-house. And then on the flip side, you've got guys like us. We are trying to be what I call best in class, right? So we're trying to be really good at one thing, account-based advertising, account-based retargeting, few key areas that there are gaps in the market for companies, whether it's the cloud vendors or whether it is the certain all-in-one vendors. Other than that, we're trying to give customers a choice to go with a specialized provider. And we really think the market is increasingly demanding that all marketing and sales tech companies be more open to integrations, make it easier to integrate their technologies with data, valuable data such as the ones you get from a provider like budgets.ai. So I think that the better vendors, the better providers we think customers really should focus on and evaluate is around the ability to be more of an open platform and be able to consume, as I said, more forms of content, more forms of data from outside of their immediate system or platform. I would say that's the future. I would also say ABM, and you're going to hear this from others too, ABM is increasingly B2B marketing, right, at certain class of companies. Vasil?
Great. And just a follow-up question on that. For those best-in-class types of ABM solution, like Quanzu, budgets.ai, do you have any others that you would like to highlight, the ones that will be a good fit if you are just building out your ABM marketing stack?
Yeah, so look, I think at the end of the day, you really have to go capability by capability, right? So if you look at younger companies, one of the first things they start with is they need a way to get their emails out. So you need a marketing nurture emails going out, so you need some kind of a marketing automation platform. You obviously need a CRM platform. Could be Salesforce, could be someone else. So then you start layering on what I call ABM technologies, and where we help is account level analytics and insight on the website. That's certainly one area we help. Second is account-based advertising and outreach through, is another piece that people will want to do. And account-based insight for salespeople. Then you need data providers. So data meaning high-quality contact data, right? So you have a Discover org, you have Dun & Bradstreet, they come in there. So I'm trying to think, where else would you invest? It depends, as I said, Vasil, on the scale of the business. From there, they start investing in a variety of areas. Another company people are looking at is, for example, Engagio for cross-channel ABM analytics. There's a company called, Ringlead. People look at when they want their data to kind of be clean and be able to work across different kind of data providers. That is a data cleansing tool. There's another company called lean data that companies look at for, lead to account matching and so on and so forth. So hopefully, Vasil, that gives you a sampling of some of the companies out there. And then, of course, you have the intent data providers. As they mature, they start looking at intent vendors, that are out there. There's many of them, and they start looking at those as well. And I hope that helps kind of explain the different kinds of vendors, different kinds of companies people might want to look at.
Yeah, definitely very helpful, and I'm sure there must be infographics or image similar to the ones that Scott Brinker creates when it comes to ABM solutions. I don't know if you know of anyone, but if either you or Anand know any resource, feel free to add it to the chat while we taking some questions here. Do you have anything to add to it? What I think Mani provided quite comprehensive overall outlook on ABM. Anand, do you have anything to add to it?
Yeah, I think there are some lessons that sales can provide to marketing, as Mani mentioned earlier. Sales is on the ground, and there is a lot of tribal knowledge that salespeople have, and given my own background in sales. And that doesn't always necessarily translate into marketing initiatives, right? ABM is the closest that comes where some of these learnings that the salespeople have could be combined and incorporated into ABM initiatives. So in addition to looking at tools and technologies, some of the hybrid technologies like budgets, which is applicable both for sales and marketing, are probably ones to look at. So bring the salespeople into the loop as well, and give them something back that is actionable. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, and to add to what Anand just said, Vasil, one other trend that we are seeing is ABM is starting to evolve into ABM plus ABS, account-based selling, account-based marketing. And more and more companies are starting to look at their marketing and sales technologies holistically, because they want to connect the dots across those technologies really, really well, right? So it makes it a complete closed-loop process across B2B marketing and sales. Right. And then looking further ahead, if you look at the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I think you'll see that also go beyond marketing and sales into how do you then go beyond new logos, new logo acquisition, conversions, landing customers into expansion, renewal. So it kind of the technologies will connect, I think, even better into customer success. So you have a whole set of different companies building out technologies for CS or customer success. So all the way from marketing to sales to CS, you're going to see a lot more deeper integration, deeper connection, so-called unified B2B customer experience, which has been the holy grail, right, for many, many years.
Very interesting. Anand, can you take a look at some questions here that came from Balaji right now? I'm not sure if you addressed the first one during your presentation, but maybe you can take a quick look. They came in via chat. And while you're looking at it, in the meantime, I want to give a quick plug to our event actually happening next week, where we'll be exactly looking at the B2B customer journey and all of these topics that were covered today by Anand and Mani. So we'll have special roundtable discussions around account-based marketing, MarTech, marketing operations, intent data, as well as some growth leadership sessions, networking. We still have a few seats, so if you're in San Francisco next week, event is happening. It's a small local event, so you can apply to attend and join us there. Anand, do you have any insights on Balaji questions?
Yes. So the question from Balaji, I'll read it out. Did you say that your algorithm estimates or predicts what could be the dollar budget spent, in this case, the company from South Carolina, and later your prediction of the internal budget allocation on the BM turned out to be 100% accurate? So the short answer, the answer is to the first part is yes. So we were able to predict accurately that the company, in this case, Benefit Focus, started a new initiative, an ABM initiative in September. And the dollar figure was approximate. It was $300K. And when we reached out to the executive, the head of marketing, Jason, at Benefit Focus, he confirmed that. Of course, we did not get into the specific dollar figures because that is confidential, and I cannot say exactly how many dollars he spent. But at least the confirmation on the start date is accurate and the approximate ranges are accurate. So, but beyond that, there are several other data points where we do have, which we cannot talk about the specific numbers, but we do have confirmations. And the dollar figures are usually in the 75% range accurately. So that is the current state of the prediction capabilities.
Great. Yeah, Balaji, we'll share your information with Mani and Anand so they can reach out to you afterwards and share a little bit more about the services as you inquired. And it looks like we're about running out of time, but I just wanted for both of you to provide maybe a parting words of advice for someone who's just starting out with ABM program. What are some of the biggest mistakes that both of you seen, and what is the advice for someone who just trying to integrate the best-in-class solution for the very first time?
Okay. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, Mani. You go first.
Well, we're seeing one of the, I guess, I don't know what to call it, but having been there from the early days of ABM, it's almost like every movie, I've seen this movie before, right? You see the same, you wish people would do things a little differently, but it's probably a longer conversation. I could literally write a post on it, but there's a lot that people could do, to get it done and get it done right from day one. The way you plan things out, focusing, putting more effort, more time into what I call upfront planning. Account selection is actually super important to get it right. Experimentation, meaning you may not have it right, so know that you may not have it right, which means set yourself up to try what I call a lot of series of smaller tests, experiments. So build experimentation right into your process. Just remember, marketing, and same is true with sales and inside sales and sales development, which is both are so super critical, right, in new customer acquisition. There are no shortcuts. There's going to be a decent amount of work. Have the right people, right staff, right teams in place, and certainly, hopefully, pick and choose the right, external providers, advisors, partners, consultants to help you. Anna.
Yeah, and I can add, from the sales perspective and that experience, include your more seasoned salespeople into your ABM efforts. Get them involved in the beginning and continuously take feedback from them in terms of what they think are the priorities and the things that will resonate the most with the target accounts. And when you do find some target accounts and activity, consult with them and why they think it is worth pursuing or not pursuing certain accounts. So they have a lot of intelligence that could be leveraged into your ABM programs.
Totally agree.
Right.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much to both of you for joining the webinar today. Thanks everyone for attending, and I hope you check out Quanzu and budgets.ai. Send us some feedback about this webinar, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at the upcoming growth marketing events.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.